Hello and welcome to the How Not to Screw Up Your Kids podcast, the Bucket Emptying Episodes. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Han, psychologist and parenting expert. So, pour yourself a cuppa, find a comfy seat, and enjoy the conversation. Today's bucket emptying episode, I hope, is a bit of a relief, maybe, for you as parents, because I want to talk around this notion of making the right decision for your children. And it's this notion that there is, first of all, a right decision. And so I thought it would be a really good 10-minute tip conversation, because I think it's that the whole idea, whenever we're presented with a challenge with our children, we kind of rack our brains and we kind of go round and round in circles about this idea of finding the right solution, that there must be a best solution which minimises the likelihood that we're going to screw up our kids. And the reason why I think this is such a big bucket emptying challenge for us as parents is that I think that once we accept that there is no right decision, I think it's a really helpful thing. Now, obviously, it's not just that. That's not my top tip for 10 minutes. But I do want to unpick it a little bit, because I do think and particularly for people like me who are around advocating a whole host of top tips in the way that we approach things, I guess that does present for you as a parent listening to me, reading books, listening to other podcast episodes, that there must be a hard and fast way that you need to approach all sorts of things. Whereas the reality is that isn't the case, but there are some broad brush things that I think are important for us to bear in mind when it comes to making decisions about our children. So the first is that there is no right decision. It's about making the best decision that you can in that moment with the information available to you at the time. Because what we know for sure is that we often get caught into this narrative of we're raising maybe 2, 3, 4 children, or maybe we're just raising one, but this particular narrative tends to play out much more when we've had multiple children, because we will maybe our first has behaved in a particular way. And then we ask ourselves, well, why is number 2 behaving that particular way in that situation? We've done everything the same. We're the same parents. We've raised them exactly the same way, but why are they doing this? And I think that's where we get caught in this idea that there needs to be a right way. The reality is, as human beings, we are so different. And we're not just different because of the way that we look. We're different by the way that we process information. And whilst our home environment may be the same, our parents might be the same, maybe our children have gone to the same school, so much of how we interact with our environment is completely and utterly unique. And so you might have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children raised in the same home under all of the same or similar circumstances, who bring with them a whole host of individual differences genetically, but it then becomes compounded. So you've got a 6-month-old, and that 6-month-old is raised in exactly the same way as your current 3-year-old. And then you find that when they're 1, they're doing different things, or maybe they're more compliant, maybe they're less compliant, whatever that might be. If you think about every interaction that your children have in each day, and how they then interpret that interaction, how that impacts and informs their learning, becomes exponential in terms of the differences that then may transpire. So the reason why I'm saying it is because it's such a crucial thing for us to get our head around, because it then helps us understand that there are some general principles around parenting: being connected, communicating, empathizing, acknowledging emotions, providing a rich environment that isn't necessarily academically rich, but is curiosity and novelty rich. One where we have lots of conversations around emotions and we build their vocabulary around, their emotional literacy. There are these broad areas that are good things that we do for our children in terms of that cultivating that environment. Think of them, they're not a plant, obviously, but think of them in that analogy that we kind of cultivate a really great soil in which we plant them for them to flourish and to grow. But each plant each child will respond differently within that environment. And so we will need to supplement them in different ways because they will respond to their environment in different ways. And we know that even when we're not just looking at life that goes smoothly, but you can have two children, whether they're in the same family or not, that can experience the exact same scenario. And we're thinking here adversity. They can experience exactly the same thing, but what can happen is, for one, that adversity fuels them and actually they flourish and they grow as a result of that adversity. But another child, that adversity may be debilitating and may actually become a self-limiting aspect of their life. So we just need to understand that if we understand and acknowledge that the same context, when we've got this cumulative environmental effect, leads our children to respond differently, it's then really easy to see that there can never be a hard and fast rule. There can never be a right decision. There can just simply be the best decision for your child with the information you have in that moment. And I say that because at the time that this episode is likely to go out, we're going to be approaching breaks in school holidays, or potentially for those of you who've got children that are going to be starting school for the first time, that whole lead up. And so often there are so many big decisions around that period of time, whether it's that long expanse of time when you're all together as a family, whether that's school holidays, or whether your child is transitioning, whether they're transitioning into nursery, preschool, school, secondary school, university, college, whatever that might be. We tend to then be stuck in this making the right decision. Do I give them a mobile phone? Do they have access to social media? Do we, allow them to drink? Whatever it might be with the age and stage that your child is going through, we often get caught up in this. I need to make the right decision. And I wanted to really help, more than anything else, clarify that we can never make a right decision, but we are making those decisions along the way. So what I think is probably better for us to do is to be framing the questions that we ask ourselves in that, am I available for my child as often as I would like to be, for them to be able to communicate? This isn't, am I available and I'm going to beat myself up because I've got a full-time job. That isn't the type of availability I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, when you are physically present, are you emotionally present and psychologically present in your mind? Have you parked other things? Those are the sorts of questions that we should be asking ourselves. How well do I know the world with which my child operates within? And the world that I'm talking about questioning ourselves in terms of them operating in is not, do they go to school, how many people are in their classroom, but just what lens with which my child views the world, because that helps us understand. Is it a lens of opportunity, excitement, lots of wonderful things and opportunities, or does the lens that my child look through the world very much one of scarcity, of fear, of anxiety? Those are the things that help us understand the backdrop to then be making those best decisions that we can in those moments, and not focusing in on the right decision. Now, this is a really crucial topic, and I don't think I can necessarily do justice with it in just one bucket emptying episode. And I will come back to this quite a bit over the next few months and over the next few years, because I do think it's the one thing that we beat ourselves up as parents. And I think the one thing that probably fills our bucket the most, because we're often very guilty even after we've made a decision, because we worry we haven't made the right one. So I hope, if nothing else, that can help you shift the narrative that you have with yourself, shift the lens that you focus through. And when you're having those conversations, when you're trying to make decisions, you can change the narrative that you have when you try and make that decision, that it isn't the best decision. Yeah, actually, it's not about making the right decision. It's about simply making the best decision that you can with the information that you have at that time, because that will be refined as you go along. You'll be making another decision and another decision the next day after that. So I hope that that really helps begin that conversation for you. And do please get in touch with what you think about this. And is this a really big problem? Does it paralyze you from making decisions often? Does it cause tension if you're co-parenting, because you may have decision differences in the way that you go about making those decisions? If you have enjoyed this episode, if you found it helpful, if you enjoy the podcast generally, I would be eternally grateful if you could share episodes that you have enjoyed that have been really helpful and informative for your parenting journey. Because if they've been helpful for you, then a colleague, a friend, a neighbour, a family member may also find them helpful. And so if we can spread the love, I shall see you next time.